All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August Rust Gamedev Meetup. Oh, yes, there we go. I just got to turn my music down a little bit. All right, there we go. So I'm super excited for this month. We have some pretty interesting things that we're going to be talking about. We have so a few different speakers. We got one thing that's really cool is RustConf just happened. And I mean, I don't know when the videos are coming out, but if you didn't see some of the videos from RustConf, there was a really good one by Alice, who is like one of the product managers for Bevy. And she talks about why your project needs a project manager. And I thought it was amazing, super good. It was great to see her giving that talk. So definitely make sure to check that out. Other than that, we also have Carlo here today, who's going to be talking to us about the RustConf arcade cabinet and how it went while he was there in person. So I'm definitely excited for that. And so without further ado, we'll dive into, I guess, getting started with what's been going on. So, of course, if you've been working on cool stuff this month, always feel free to put a little mention of it in the chat, either on Discord or on YouTube, Twitch, whatever, and I'll keep an eye out. And we'll talk about what people have been working on. A little bit later, I'll show us some stuff that I've been trying out this month, so that'd be kind of cool. And so we got the shoutouts and all of that stuff. But without further delay, I do want to hop over to Carlo, just because Carlo is actually coming at us from the road today, on his way back from RustConf. So Carlos, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We're driving through North Dakota. It's our last day. Should be there in about 4 hours back home. So, I'll talk about RustConf. So, we did a road trip out to Portland, to bring the arcade. That was the most cost-effective way to bring cabinet out, and so it kind of turn into a little bit of a vacation after. So through Vancouver and then through Banff and Calgary and then down to North Dakota and back home to Minnesota. So when I got to RustConf, they had the table ready, which was really nice. I set up the arcade, some flyers where I put information about the games and the developers and their GitHubs and where support the project or get involved. Of course, the tools they use, so like Bevy and GG Easy, and I also mentioned the Rust working group because that helps a lot of people as well. Bringing out games the whole time, and pretty much went as people were really impressed with what people were able to.
I think we might have lost you there for a few seconds. yeah, so just while we're waiting for Carlo to get back here, yeah, so a few things that Carlo sent me over. We got some, so I guess this is like the agenda here. Oh, I think we lost you for about 15 seconds there, Carlo.
Okay. Do you remember the last thing I said?
Unfortunately, oh, people were enjoying it. People were enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah. People enjoyed it. They like the creativity of the games, and I also learned a lot about what to improve. I think the biggest one was launcher through using Steam Big Picture, but I kind of had to tense the control labels so they will kind of get lost. Which so a launcher is definitely one of the most things for the next event. And I also got some ideas on how the arcade that I'm not going to reveal right now, but hopefully if you follow the project those as they come out.
Perfect. Now, as for following information on the project, I think you put out a YouTube video about the content, right? Or like just how it went?
Yes, I did a pre-conference video. That's my latest video, and I plan on doing a post-conference one too. So look out for that as well. But yeah, you can kind of learn about a little bit about what went into the project in that video. And I didn't go. I kind of had to rush that out before I left, so it didn't include everything I wanted. But I hope to, in this post-conference video, kind of complete, filling in the holes in what went into the project as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think seeing it in like the pictures of it at RustConf are really, really cool. It definitely seemed like it all together in the end.
Oh yeah, it did. It worked well. I think keeping it simple and focusing on like a minimum viable product really kind of worked out. And now there's definitely room to improve. There's things that are currently in that arcade machine that I didn't use just because, like the LED lights and the buttons, just because I wanted to keep it simple and see if just this worked, and it did. So now I can move on to more complex features in the future.
Nice. Yeah, that's super cool. All right, I'm just taking a look through your list here. And also, I gotta say, a road trip through Vancouver and Banff is really, really nice. That's like one of like the nicest parts of Canada. Banff is beautiful. Then you get into like 40 hours of prairie, and so there's like a lot more to go through there. So it sounds like going back down to America is a good choice there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same here.
Yeah.
But Banff was really amazing and a really good kind of detour on our way back to take. Really nice. Really glad we took the time to go up there.
Good stuff. All right. Well, Carlo, I think we'll leave it off here. So thank you so much for giving us a small update. I'm definitely excited for any blog posts or videos you put out from this. It looked like, RustConf looked like a ton of fun. I was so bummed like that. While it's happening, you have like just like you're missing out. Like I'm watching it online. It was still very enjoyable, but being in there in person would have been super cool. So definitely next year for me, I will be attending. So thank you so much. So thank you.
Yeah, hope to see you there. All right, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Catch you next time. All right, so next up we have Elham, who's going to be talking to us about Blue Engine. So Elham, I'll let you take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm Elham here. If anyone from the past is here, they know that I've presented Blue Engine before too, a few times. But after I got into the dark sometimes because I had exams and stuff like that, so I didn't have time to get on the meetups and stuff. But it's been a few months, and I've been working on the engine a lot. So I'm gonna do a basic introduction. What is Blue Engine? Blue Engine is basically my frustration with a lot of other engines at the time that I've started. So I started out basically a couple of years ago in the Rust graphics programming, sort of. general graphics programming, but I've got into Rust last year. But basically, I had a lot of frustrations with a lot of engines because some of them were easy to use, but like hard to extend beyond its normal use. Others were very hard to use, and they took a long time, but at the same time weren't like featureful and stuff like that. So basically, I had a lot of frustrations with a lot of engines, and things didn't work out. And because of that, I've started looking out on other solutions. Like, should I start my own one? Should I like check out more like low level language or other things that are new? So I've came across a decision to start learning it to build graphics engines and uh, likes like that. So that's where Blue Engine started. That's when it was born. The Blue Engine has very simple aims. The first one is being simple to use, easy to use. So anyone, even beginner or pros, would have an easy time using it. The second goal is to be extendable. Like it shouldn't take your hand like to do everything itself. You could like extend it to the parts or to the features or to new things that you would like to use. The um, the, the syntax is mostly inspired by JavaScript engines like 3JS or Babylon. And as an example, this is a hello world for Blue Engine, a simple triangle. And as you can see, the first thing, it's around 5 lines, sort of. The first one is just initializing the engine itself and making a window, then making the triangle, and then running the game loop, sort of. That's about it to start the Blue Engine. Now, it might get difficult as time goes. For example, if you want to like make your own shapes, like you don't want to use any of the engine's made shapes and you want to find something new, for example, square. Well, it's pretty much easy to. You just make a new object. Objects, I'll explain objects a bit more later on. And then you just pass in the vertices and positions, stuff like that, and then you can call it easily like before. And due to stuff like this, I've tried to keep the engine as simple as possible. So even the future features will be made to be as easy to use, and anything that is extra, for example, advanced camera, advanced lighting, stuff like that, it shouldn't like hold you to like be a certain way. It could be external, it could be from engine anywhere. It doesn't matter. So that's a lot of focus is on that. So I'll give a few examples here. Since I left, we've implemented advanced 3D and camera movement, which advanced as in like the engine advanced. So let me share a cube example for here. Uh, it takes a bit to compile, as you know, we use WGP on the back end, and when it's a bit heavy. The camera movements here for a cube. Allow me to show an example of the cube. This is the whole thing, the whole code that took for the cube to render. It's just like defining the cube itself, setting the color, and getting, and these are for the camera movement, the radius, moving the camera itself, and that's about it for this example. Going a bit more complex, we have GUI too, a graphical user interface. It's been a bit recent times that I've implemented this. So we use I'm GUI basically. Allow me to show an example. Like GUI, we have it here. The MGUI was a bit complex to implement because it didn't work out with the UI a lot. So we had, I need to take a lot of time to implement it there. But it works now. So it also seamlessly works with the engine, so you don't have to do a lot of extra things. For that, this is the code for the Hello GUI. You just define the triangle, which is normally, and set a color, and then make your color pick. and from here you just pass in the value. So that's how to dynamically change color in here. It's not that complex. I've also added some more stuff on it to on MG to like styling it even further. For example, you'd want custom styles per element, and you can also like nest the stylings for them, so it will compile a bit sooner. Here, you have your normal button, then you added a border, and then changing color again. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that I've built, and most recently, like a few days ago, I've been working on the lighting a bit. It's experimental, but I've been able to like make a diffuse lighting for the engine, and allow me to show the whole code for lighting took around 150 lines of code. For example, this is very basic lighting, but it's just like a showcase that it doesn't even have to be from the engine inside. You can just implement these lighting and other techniques yourself. Like it's just a short amount of code to extend the engine yourself. But yeah, these are the things that I've been working on until now. The current version is 0.3.97, and by 0.4, all the lighting and some other bug fixes will be done. And after that, the 0.4 will be released. There isn't a lot of wiki right now. I've been working on a wiki here that goes over the structure, how things are made, and the default values, stuff like that. I've been adding more tutorials on it, more examples, more things to work on. Uh, I've been also like planning to make a video series on it to like study it further and like show an examples of it, and even like make a game on it to improve it further and know which points that I've missed or things like that. But yeah, those are plans that are post 0.4 release. But yeah, that's what we are currently at on the Blue Engine. That's it for now.
All right, this is super cool. So I love sort of like seeing these different approaches, and I know I took a look at Blue Engine back several months ago when you first told me about it, and it's definitely really cool to see that you're so far along and like a lot of stuff is coming out. And so one thing I'm curious about is what was the most fun thing to implement within a game engine?
The most fun I had was implementing the way that objects work in the engine. I've talked about the objects before. So basically, the objects in Blue Engines is like nodes and Godot. How it is like it gives a structure on how objects in a scene should work and stuff like that. So the objects was mostly fun because before that I had a lot of pain to just make things show on the screen. Objects was like taking a lot of that and smashing it into one small piece of code that I have to write, and it was so fun. After that, I had like a lot of sigh of relief after it. But yeah, objects was the most fun to work at. It also took a lot of time. It took a few months to like fully make it work with the engine and future plans and making foundation for it very strong and stuff. Yeah.
Nice. And I'm also curious, how far along do you think it is in terms of someone being able to create a game? I mean, like I guess there's like an entire documentation side of stuff, but do you think it's at a point where someone could come in and work on implementing something?
But yeah, definitely. We also have a editor on it. It is ready for making games, but I wouldn't recommend it just yet because a lot of things are experimental. But if you have very simple games, for example, the Space Raiders and stuff like that, you can. It's no problem. You can also have simple scenes and stuff. But after Lighting or 0.5, I think, release, you'll be definitely able to make games on it. We also have an experimental editor called Blue Flames by a member of our community.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see this. I know one of Bevy's big tenets for I think 0.9 or whichever version's next is that they really want to work a lot on an editor, and even for Valorant as well. I mean, like we're definitely feeling the pain here. Okay, this is cool. Nice. Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's very experimental. It started, like as you can see, it started recently, but we were working on it even before I was working on user interface and stuff for it. So this guy is Kumar on Discord, which is in a community, but he's not on Discord anymore. He just talks to me directly. We've been working on the engines, and it will continue to be working on it. So we'll be moving Blue engines to an editor very soon. That's a big plan for up to the 0.5 release.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I love experimental engine, like I guess engine interfaces for interacting with stuff. Is there any particular inspiration you're taking in terms of what a GUI can look like?
Yes. I mean, Godot is a
Yeah,
big
okay, yeah.
big inspiration for me. I'm a lot of things are inspired by Godot. For example, the object system that I told about. But mostly, I'm looking something similar to 3JS or Godot's editor. I've been waiting for the editor a long time because I wanted it to be able to work like Godot's editor too, because you could write the editor inside the engine. That was a big plan for it, like not the other way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, some really cool meta programming there for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm super excited to see how much progress is coming along here. Do you have any, I guess, like timelines on when you're expecting 0.4?
0.4 should be up in around 20th this month, because up to then I have other projects to work on. So around then, the bug fixes and other small API changes will be done, so it will be ready for documentations and other stuff. So around 20th, it will be 0.4. 20 this
Perfect,
month.
perfect. All right, good stuff. Well, Elham, thank you so much for showing some stuff off. And actually, let me just check that we don't have anything in chat. I think, yeah, people were mentioning, oh, okay, yeah, we have someone mentioning in chat, most fun is obviously making a colored triangle. Yeah, that's like a very important thing for anything graphics related. Perfect, perfect. All right, well, good stuff. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in a future month to see how stuff is going. And we'll see you then.
Thank you very much. See you guys.
All right, so welcome back. This is like, I guess, the intermission because I get to take over and talk about some stuff I've been working on. One thing I did want to mention is that Ray March posted in the Discord chat about a GIF of the 3D Ferris that they made, and I'm super hyped to see this in this week's newsletter. And so this is like a 3D model that anybody is able to use. As far as I know, I don't know how licenses work for models in particular license. So yeah, okay, so CC0. And so you can like, oh my gosh, look how cute that is. Isn't that amazing? And so, I mean, yeah, so Godot has like that image that you have, that is just like the Godot icon that if you're making a game and you don't want to do art assets yet, you just throw that into something. And so I'd love to see if this can be put into like other engines and stuff like that. It looks like it looks like it's rigged. I mean, yeah, we got some inverse kinematics here, I think. And so it would be really cool to see this in some other places. Yeah, this is super cool, super cool. All right, so other than that, also, I mean, as I always mention, go check out this month's Gamedev newsletter. I think we got a lot of pretty cool stuff on here. And I'm going to talk about Valorant. And so, well, actually, before I talk about Valorant, I want to talk about another project I've been working on. Lang Jam 3. So the third Lang Jam happened a few weekends ago. And so JT runs it. JT is one of I think they're on the core team of Rust, and they've done like a lot of language stuff. I recently found out about their YouTube channel, and I love it so much. It's so much fun just watching a lot of the videos that explore different stuff. I think JT is also one of the people who works on New Shell as well, or I say one of the people, but I feel like they probably were one of the initial creators. So What I want to talk about though, and I'm going off on tangents as I tend to, is I made a language, and I went in thinking like, okay, my general idea is I want you to be able to coding in a file that is like very visual. And the theme of the jam was beautiful assembly. Now I'm not an assembly kind of person, so I'm like, okay, well, Factorio is sort of like inspiration, and I want like there to be like islands that you can like send messages back and forth to. And I think that was a bit too ambitious, but I ended up coming up with something called Nadia. And I got a pretty cool GIF here of stuff running. Actually, wait, let's go to this one. This one's cooler. Oh, it's a bit small. Can I make this bigger? Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So I came up with this interesting language, and I like it because it's much more, or I was heavily inspired by game jam type of stuff. And so like the theme, I used it as like, okay, well, what would like be a gamified way of like making a programming language? And I think something like Factorio or something like this is a good way to go. And just to kind of show off what a file, examples, what a file might look like. I think Maze is one of the more complex ones. Okay, so I apologize that I don't have Wicked Dark Reader on. Okay, I think maybe that's better. Raw. Okay, here we go. So this is what a file looks like. You got like a lot of dots right here. I described this as like the factory floor, and then you got like conveyor belts. And then any operator can like combine stuff together. Well, any operator. I have multiplication and addition, and I didn't have enough time to figure other stuff out, but it was a ton of fun to do, to kind of come up with this. And I'm also, so Zester, who's another one of the core developers of Valoran, which I work on. Zester is working on this language called Tau, and Zester definitely like just told me go out and make a language. Just like, if you're interested in languages, just go make one and learn from it. And I'm so glad that I did, and I cannot recommend it more. And I have a lot more distance I want to go in terms of like merging game dev and language development. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff there. So anyways, that was like one thing that I tried. But I also want to show off some Valoran's things. Let me see here. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the main menu here. So we released Valoran 0.13, and this was our biggest release yet in terms of the amount of participation at the release party. And so for a 0.12 release, we had 195 players online at the same time at peak. Whereas for 0.13, we made it up to 275 players online, which blew our minds. And like, I think we were hoping that we would get up to 195 and then push past 200. And then as it kept going, we're like, oh my goodness, are we going to hit 300? And that would have been crazy. But it's amazing to see that we can keep pushing like the bounds on how many players are on a single server. And hopefully this allows us in the future to explore a lot more mechanics that work well with this many players. All right. So a few things I want to show off. So first of all, there's like a ton of stuff that was implemented for 0.13. But I want to show off caves, and I want to show off weather. Oh, and actually, I feel like I showed this off at a previous Rust Gamedev meetup, but it's like the easiest thing to show off. I'm going to try to not move as much as possible because I know bitrate is a big thing. That doesn't do too well, but we got like these LOD trees now, so you can like you can see the mountains off in the distance, you can see trees off the distance. I think it used to be just barren. Like for example, like over there, we can see some mountains that don't have any trees on them. So it's a lot better now. Okay, so I have got a command from the developer who implemented weather in Valoran. I'm pretty sure I was sort of like second guessing myself. I'm pretty sure Issa was one work on it. So weather zone storm 10,100. Okay, so if we do this, then in theory, oh yeah, look at that. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh, we got, oh yeah, that's a storm. Oh, there's thunder too. So unfortunately, I can't share audio through through StreamYard. And also, I mean, the bit right now is like dead. So we're seeing like 2 frames per second on StreamYard here. But so weather was implemented. I think it's so cool. It just adds so much to like feeling like it's a dynamic world. And then we have the lightning, which it's just so beautiful, like just off in the clouds. Okay, we got some black clouds over here, so maybe we can see some stuff over there. Oh, look at that! Look at that! That's so cool. Okay, so weather is a big thing. We got added. Modular. So there's other stuff that I can't show off as well. We have modular weapons, and this is something that Sam worked on for like, I don't know, probably 6 to 8 months. It was such like a long-term process, but I unfortunately don't know how to show it off too well. We got like extra ambient sounds, and so like a lot more of just stuff as you're going around the world. But the other thing I want to try and find is a cave. Okay, let's go to that cave, which is over this way. I apologize for bit rate as I fly in this direction for a little wee while. Oh wait, we're almost there. Oh wait, we passed it. Okay. So a lot more was done on the cave systems, and one thing that is really nifty about this. Wait, where was I? Okay, there we go. So with the cave systems, one thing that's really cool about this is that, oh, actually, this might be a perfect example. They go down very deep now, and I don't know if this is like particularly new to this update, but it makes it like amazing for flying down. Okay, I'm gonna watch on the stream here because my other screen is a bit dark here. So I'm just gonna like speed run through here a little bit. So we got the different parts of caves, and by that I mean we have like different biomes now. And so I don't even think I've explored them all myself. And so let's see if we can get down to something down here. So as just a place to go when you're playing multiplayer with people, it gives you like the opportunity to fight your way through a lot of stuff. Now I've got like all my admin stuff on so that I can like quickly get around. I'm thinking of like doing a stream sometime in the future where it's just like like the developers play Valorant, because I feel like there's several of us who actually work a bit further away from like the code itself and like a lot of the experience and like design and all of this. And so like, for example, I know very little about our weapon system, hence like not being able to show off modular weapons too well. But I know that there's maybe a few other devs that like we could do like maybe once we get the questing system enabled or like implementing all of this. Oh yeah, look at that. So I think this is like part of the new biome. I don't know if those are like, I think those are the mushrooms that have been put in. Yeah, so beautiful caverns, and different creatures down here, different fauna and all of that. I'll see if I can get a little bit further. Wait, we're not that far from the surface, I guess. Or there's an ogre. All right, so yeah, so caves are a ton of fun to explore. And let me just go through. Okay, so we have like, so with Airshipper, which is like our launcher, we have all of like the change log here. So once you boot it up, you'll be able to see it. I think we're going through like a reskinning of the launcher, so there'll be some pretty cool stuff there. You can do skiing now. That's a pretty cool one. Yeah, ambient sounds, a lot of this. Yeah, cave biomes, that was massive. But anyways, I guess that's like a little sneak peek of some of the big stuff that's been going on with the game. I'm trying to think of anything else to mention. Yeah, I mean, we keep up development. You can always join the Discord server if you're interested in giving some of it a try yourself. But yeah, with that said, I think that's it for me for this month. So I'm going to be right back. And I think next up we have Kevin, who will talk to us about Graphite. All right, hello. I just go like this.
Hello.
Yeah, so Kevin, it's another month. I assume we got another Graphite update, so I'm excited to hear what's been going on.
All right, hello. and you can hear me correctly?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so here is the update for the Sprint 17 of Graphite. So just in case you're tuning in for the first time or you're unfamiliar, Graphite is a 2D graphics application, a digital content creation tool for creating vector. At the moment it's just vector, but in the future it will also be raster graphics, so that you can use it for building the assets, the 2D assets or textures for game development, or editing photos in the future, or doing vector graphic sort of illustrations, or basically anything that you would use Illustrator or Photoshop or GIMP or Inkscape for. That's the long-term goal, and right now it is sort of a basic replacement for Inkscape or Illustrator. The idea also is that it's going to be entirely procedural, and we've been working this month and previous months on basically building this node graph system that's going to replace how we use layers. And that's basically going to allow you to do something like Houdini or something like Blender's geometry nodes, except in the 2D context. And that's going to be really powerful because no one's really actually done 2D content creation in the general like graphics editing sense with node-based systems before. It's somewhat new as a concept that we're pioneering here. So we're excited about this, and we've been building out the editor over the past year and a half or so, and continue to work on it and make more progress at integrating the node system, which is our upcoming focus now. Here is a overview of what the UI will look like in the future. This is a mock-up, and you can see on the right side that's what the layer system might look like when it is merged with nodes. And this is what that same layer system there would look like in the node graph, although we're still working on tweaking this mock-up here to include some newer ideas and things like that. But that is our current focus in the next few months, is to get this sort of thing integrated. So over this past month, and over Sprint 17, we worked on creating a welcome screen when no documents are open. So I will just go and tab over and show you what that looks like. So if I close this crazy mess, we now have the ability to close all the documents. And what that means is previously we had hard-coded the assumption that there's always going to be at least one document open. And actually it looks like we do still have a few little bugs related to that, like there are some layers still showing up, and we still show that the hints here for the different types of input you can use for the active tool. Those are still some of the little pieces that remain as a result of assuming that there's always a document open, but those little bugs we can fix later. But previously we just crash everything if you didn't have a document open, because you'd be sending all of these messages between different components of the application saying, oh, we need to use the current document, but there isn't one open. So by replacing that with somewhat of a refactor to make that possible, and adding this welcome screen, now people who visit the application for the first time get to see the logo, and they get to actually find information about how they can either open a new document or create a new document, open a document or create a new document with either the button or the keyboard shortcut. And speaking of keyboard shortcuts, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. We also then have the menu bar cleanup. So previously we just had a bunch of like junk from the mockup that was in here, a bunch of unimplemented placeholders, and sort of just cleaned that up. We also implemented the import menu entry, which allows you to import images. And previously you had to drag those images into the editor, but now you can also import them from there. We also have the ability to clear artboards. That's a new feature, and basically just cleaning up all of this and adding some of the things that used to be only keyboard shortcuts. Now they can actually be accessed from the menus here. And that's just sort of working towards polishing things up and making it more user-friendly for new users who are just visiting the application for the first time, as we work our way towards the second milestone release of the alpha series. We also did a big code base restructure and cleanup. Basically, over the past year or so, we've been building into the code base and kind of just throwing files wherever they kind of made sense, but not in any coherent, planned out structure. So this basically meant going through, moving all the files around into new folder structures where they all make sense. This sort of matches the tree-based hierarchy of how we build our internal tree structure of the application. We have a message system where basically internally in the Rust structure we use Rust enums to make it so a message can either be sent directly, basically you push a message to the dispatcher, and a dispatcher is in charge of sort of routing it down the tree, and that means that different components that handle messages can also handle sub-messages for their children. And that tree structure allows the dispatcher to send messages down the chain to the relevant component of the application that handles that particular part of the logic. So because of that tree structure, we basically were able to move all the code around into a way that fits that structure and makes it much easier for newcomers and existing developers alike to contribute the code and understand how it's all working. And then the other major focus of this release, kind of a pretty big engineering task on its own, was actually just working on keyboard shortcuts and keyboard internationalization. So basically, Apple keyboards are very special. They, instead of having a control key as their primary key that you use as a modifier key to initiate commands, you instead have the command key, and that's in a different location. It sort of replaces the Windows key on other keyboards. And basically it just sort of throws a whole wrench in the works in regards to how you program keyboard shortcuts, how you display them, all of that. So you can see here on my Windows computer we have the layout here, displaying just Shift and Control and so on. But if we then go on to display, if we're pretending that we're on a Mac, so this is not even the right thing. Hang on. If we pretend that we're on a Mac by lying, I'll wait for that to compile while I keep talking. But basically, the Mac version now is going to be supporting, or it does support, the icons that show up on the keys. So Mac has an icon representing its command key as well as its control and its shift and its option key. And the option key is a rename of the alt key on other keyboards. So basically it's kind of complicated, and we had to go through and make it so both the way that we handle the shortcuts and match them to the actual user input, as well as displaying them in the UI when we show the hints and the menu entries that display how you actually access something. All of those now show up properly, and we're using a fancy Rust macro that allows us to basically create all these different variations of keyboard shortcuts, which is a nice use of the syntax capabilities, or basically the custom syntax triggering of Rust. So now we can see here's this icon here, or the shift key or the option key. These icons reference what the Mac version of shortcuts look like. So you can see all the shortcuts listed here. And even if you hover over something, it tells you that to swap these two colors, which I can do by clicking here, the keyboard shortcut is Shift X, or it is Shift Command X. Or to zoom in, it is Command =+ sign, or Command -sign. And then related to that is the fact that keyboards are a mess all around the world. I'm lucky that I have a pretty standardized keyboard because the standards were built around the US keyboard where I'm based. So I've sort of just assumed for a long time that keyboards are just pretty simple. But the way that different languages, and even just the British version of the keyboard, which still is English, still is based on English, it has different keys in different locations, and some of the keys have different symbols in different locations, even though the keys themselves are the same. And basically it's really a crazy complicated mess. And to make matters way worse, the JavaScript API that we're relying on for the browser to provide us user input doesn't actually properly tell you the localized versions of things. You can either choose to have the scan code, which is basically the name of that key in the US terminology, even if that terminology doesn't match up to the actual symbol on the language of the keyboard that you're receiving input from, or you can receive the actual key that's getting typed. Like if you were in a text editor, what is the key that shows up? What is the character that shows up? But neither of those tells the full story. What you actually want is, I want to know where is the plus symbol on a keyboard so I can do Control+ or Command+ to zoom in. Well, on a US keyboard, it's actually behind the equal sign, but on other keyboards, it's not behind the equal sign, so you really don't know. And that makes it really complicated to actually handle things. So essentially, we wrote like 2 pages of code that's just a bunch of heuristics to try and filter both the letter that got typed and the scan code based on the US keyboard to try and figure out what is the localized version of this key actually typing. And it's really complicated to do this and required a bunch of testing and a bunch of different variations of things. So I can actually change over to the French layout, which is based on the AZERTY instead of the QWERTY layout. So if I hit Q now, that's actually hitting the A key for me. So I can do Control A. Actually, I got to switch back to not being on, pretending I'm on a Mac. But now if I want to select everything, I'm going to hit Control Q on my keyboard, but that's actually Control A on the AZERTY keyboard. Yeah, so it's all complicated basically, and a bunch of heuristics is the solution, or the mostly permanent solution, although eventually we could move on to something even more robust, which is basically creating a giant database of every key that maps to every symbol from every keyboard in the entire world for both a Mac version and a non-Mac version. And it is very complicated. So someday we might be able to move to that, but hopefully in the meantime, some of the APIs that are provided by JavaScript can improve. And as we move towards a web-based port, or a desktop-based port, so not just a browser-based port, we may be able to also use some lower-level functionality. And that's, for example, what VS Code does to be able to receive its keyboard input. They have basically a little plugin that they wrote for Electron, which actually references the the operating system API to figure out what is the actual keyboard symbol being pressed. So that's how you can even switch between different locales, just like this, and end up having your keyboard shortcuts in VS Code switch instantly to the localized version. So with that in mind, that was the last major engineering challenge of the month. So do please get involved. We definitely have a shortage of development effort at this moment, and it would be awesome to be able to continue working towards this, especially as the number of different tasks grow, as essentially the scope of the application increases. We really have a lot of just small things that maybe they only take an hour or two to build, but there's a lot of them, and the more that people can come and help out, that would be awesome to really get this going and get the ball rolling more. We are now working on basically integrating the node graph. Something I didn't mention in this sprint was that we also we actually integrated the node code into the main code base. Previously, it was sort of a prototype experiment sitting in a separate Git repo, and we were able to pull all that code into the main repository, and now we're iterating on it more seriously and moving it towards being implemented with the layer system. But right now we're working on basically importing a PNG image and turning it into a grayscale version of itself using a grayscale node, and then exporting it back out again. And that's sort of our first little test case for image processing through the node system. Then the next system after that will be a few more experiments, followed by actually data types that represent the current layers in the current system. So if you're interested in that, either the node system or just getting started with any other smaller tasks, we could seriously really use your help. So please do join. It's actually a lot of fun, and now that the code base has been recently cleaned up, it should be much more approachable. We're also continuing to work on documentation, and if you like working on documentation, that's also great. Anyways, so please join us on Discord. You can go to discord.graphite.rs to join us and pick up a beginner-friendly task, or just say hi, use the application, make some artwork, show off your artwork. Anything to help grow the community would be super awesome. So yeah, thank you.
Right. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, it's great to hear what's been going on, and yeah, I definitely see the problem of keyboard stuff being very difficult to internationalize. There's these problems tend to have very deep rabbit holes, and so
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you upstream a crate that solves the problem for everybody if that's the solution.
I was thinking of that actually, yes, because as I mentioned, VS Code has its sort of plugin for Electron, and it looks like Tari doesn't have such a thing right now. And Tari is sort of the Rust ecosystem Electron replacement that instead of bundling Chromium, instead uses the platform's native web view. So it uses Chromium on Chromium through Edge on Windows, and also uses probably either Chromium or Firefox on Linux, and uses WebKit on Safari. I mean on Mac. But basically, Tari doesn't have at least as far as I was able to tell, it doesn't have the ability to detect native platform APIs. So doing an upstream change or either of the plugin or directly to Tari by porting the VS Code plugin, which is a bunch of C++, and I don't understand C++ very well. It's all very confusing, but it's only about 1,000 lines of code, so it probably would be pretty reasonable to go through and read it and learn how they do that and create something similar.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I've played around a bit with Tauri, but it definitely seems like it's going to have like a very large market space for a lot of solutions in the near future. I think it's definitely solved a pretty problem.
We're also looking at trying to implement that because that would also help us out with running all of our code not in WASM, WebAssembly, but instead running it actually natively, and that would allow us to do breakpoint debugging and proper debugging with Rust instead of having to be stuck in the browser sandbox, which somewhat limits the transparency into what's going on.
Indeed. Yes, that is very fair. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for giving us an update on Graphite. It's always good to have you come by. And yes, anybody who's interested in contributing to Graphite, they're always looking for help. So do check them out. And I guess we'll see you next month, Kevin.
Thanks.
Perfect. And we'll be back just in 1 second with Kate Reed, who's going to talk about their engine. All right. Hello, Kate Reed. It's been a while, but I'm very excited to hear about how your work on your engine's been going. Oh, and actually, it sounds like we're not getting your mic right now. Sounds looks like you're unmuted. Oh, yes, perfect.
Good
morning. I'll hand it off to you.
Good morning. You last heard from me about a year ago in October. And so I've been hard at work on my Voxel game engine, and I have a message for everyone. The message is, if you want to write a game, don't write an engine. This has been said many times, and you are going to see exactly why you should not do this. So from the last, here is my version history. You can see that like this is about the day that I I gave you the last info on what I'm doing, and you can see from the history that I have done so many things and 95% of these things are all about little tweaks to make the architecture actually work better. They are not about adding features. Now that's the unfortunate news. But besides that, I am going to give a little talk about what have I been actually up to. So in case you're not familiar, so the premise of my engine is, as everyone else's Voxel game engine is about, it is I like Minecraft. I want to make something that's like Minecraft but better. The catch is, then you're going to get stuck in the rabbit hole of how exactly do you want it to be better? So the premise of the whole thing is, let's just toggle that off. The premise of the whole thing is that we have objects which are made up of smaller voxels. And this is just the landscape in which I run all of my little tests. And you can see that everything here is made up of littler blocks. And so since the whole thing, I've been just this work looks almost identical to the last time, and that's because it's just all sorts of internal improvements. I've been working on making it more efficient to run animation, which is that's kind of fun. I've got here these blocks, these are all not like special effects. These are all it's synthesizing new blocks on the fly, and so you can just have arbitrary visual animated effects. And so one of the things that I've been working on is that now you can do some modifications of the world. Obviously you have this is a voxel game. You have your obvious add and delete and so on and things, and it does all the usual things. But one of the things I just built is that now you can move blocks. So if for some reason, now of course you can see that now there are Oops, I hear somebody is having. Let's see. Let's see how that stream is looking. Yeah. Okay. I assure you, the game runs a lot faster this way. But anyway, so it's a lot smoother on my screen, of course, and that's always the way it is. Actually, let me just give me just a second while I shuffle things around.
All good. I feel like this is a StreamYard thing. Like, it's difficult to always make it work in a nice way.
Let's see. Let's see.
Oh yeah, let me just pull that back up here.
Give me just a second while I shuffle things around.
All good, all good. I think like the last time we took a look at your engine, I remember there being like a few different demos, but yeah, it's really cool to see like the separations of what your voxel engine sorts of like adds as mechanics instead of just having cubes around the world.
Yeah. So okay. So can you reactivate the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the screen share is now a little better because I am no longer using a high resolution screen, so it doesn't have to encode as much. So anyway, so let's see. Now, what was it that I was going to say was new? So things I have been working on are just I have migrated my renderer to WGPU from previously I was using the OpenGL wrapper Luminance, and I'd like to say WGPU is a great thing to work on because it actually one of the things that I love about it is that it's very good at working the first time, modulo just using the API wrong, but I've encountered very few bugs, so props to the WGPU. Anyway, so what else have we got here? I did not write a script. This is a last-minute presentation. So let's see. So one thing that I've worked on now is that let's see. Where did I put that window? Oh yes. So I have now added imports for other formats. So I can do this, and now we can pull in. Here is a model that was one of the Magica Voxel demo models, and you can see that so it's fully imported, and we can see that it is now in real time, rather slowly, but in real time, it is recalculating lighting for the entire scene.
That's amazing. That was like so fast to load and like bring it into the scene, and you could just interact with it right away.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I've been focusing on is the startup performance. So that it turns out it's really easy to write things which define which cause the thing to just stutter on startup. And now if you are writing like a regular game where you are you have all sorts of pre-calculated assets, you can do pre-calculations, and you can also say, oh, I have a loading screen. But when you're trying to do interactive real-time voxel stuff, you end up with, okay, I don't even know, I know absolutely nothing about what's going to be displayed, and that's actually can be a challenging rendering problem, and it's been fun. So my renderer actually reads the clock and does an amount of work that will fit inside of the current frame time.
Interesting. And so basically just so it doesn't slow down the frame, or
exactly. It tries to just hit 60 frames per second no matter what. And so now there's still some work like this lighting performance. This could be a lot faster. I've been refraining from, for example, doing multi-threaded rendering or lighting updates or anything because I want it to be able to work in the WebAssembly environment. Speaking of that, we can just, let's see, where did I put that? Let's see. So if I can just fire that up right now. I have it uploaded to GitHub and so now we can see that we're doing exactly the same thing. You can see it's a little slow. It's loading in the scene kind of slowly, but I can still interact with it. And so that has been an interesting challenge to implement, and I still need to do some more work on smart scheduling, but it's doable. And let's see what else. So as I was saying, life has been full of just little things like just saying, okay, we're going to simplify this, we're going to refactor that, we're going to redefine the types that we're building the whole thing in, and let's see what else. Oh, let's see. I've got some new content.
I'll be honest, I didn't realize that's you were just playing it in the browser, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until right now. Nice, that's so cool.
That was actually the start. So this is some content that I've been working on of a sort. So let's see. Let me just break out of the room, and we can see that. So this is just a sort of a maze dungeon that's built out of randomly generated rooms. And so I'm planning to make this actually sort of the game tutorial, because I can randomly generate challenges that teach you how to do things. So here's the first challenge. You'll notice the lighting hasn't updated yet, but here's the first challenge. We have a room full of spikes. There probably should be something. Let's see. Let me actually. Let's see. Can I successfully full screen this? Probably not. So let's just. So there. So now you can see things a little better. So. A little better. Anyway, so procedurally generate the spikes. Okay, but for now I can just fly out, and so it just makes corridors. And good. This room has a floor. So and eventually I'm going to have something here. Some puzzles in here. And I'm still working on the transparency rendering, so you can see these glass blocks are a little wonky, but hey, it still does the job. But there's another tar pit. This is all procedurally generated. It turns out that it's really fiddly to write a bunch of code that builds a bunch of structure, and you'll spend 90% of your time trying to write down coordinate systems. So I really encourage that if you want to create content for your demo content or just whatever, that you should don't assume that you can just procedurally generate stuff and skip the bother of designing asset loading. You really want to have ways to edit, and that comes into another thing. My system here does not yet have any save game formats, and it doesn't have any way to say like this is itself an editor. Like obviously I can just click on things and just change how this is shaped, but that doesn't help me because I can't save it. So. And saving it has been blocked on, okay, I need to nail down what is the schema for all of this. So, but that's really, I encourage people to not do what I did and, just, do, have a better plan for, once you have a save schema, and if your game has in-game editing, if your game has in-game editing, then you should use it. And obviously it depends on what kind of thing you're building. Like the whole premise of sort of like, block games like this is that they are about, changing the world, think carefully about which things you decide to go and build so that you don't end up in a trap of not of just not having the right tools. Now that said, there's some other things that let's see. So speaking of building tools, another thing that I've done that is I think a really good thing to have done. By the way, feel free to cut me off any time. I don't have a calendar.
Oh, you're all good. No worries.
So is that you remember I said that I migrated my renderer from one graphics API to another, and that's a great opportunity to duplicate all the code. And by the way, did you introduce any bugs? So what I actually did was I wrote a test suite which actually renders, runs the renderer, displays pictures, and and figures out, and then checks if the results are matched. And WGPU also has some of this, and I was actually talking with CW Fitzgerald about like how to make it how do you compare images when like which GPU you're running on is that. But anyway, sorry, or waiting a second for it to actually compile and run the tests. But so I just have all of these test cases. So you can see I've had these tiny little images, which they're tiny little images so that they can be, successfully, so that they can be successfully, stored in the repository without taking up too much space. And so we can see here that we have this little scene, which is just, it's got a bunch of objects, got a bunch of lighting, it's got fog in the background. And so this is my test case for, does the fog look like it's supposed to? Do the things in the background disappear? And once the tests get to actually running, I'll be able to show you what that looks like. Let's see, what else is up? I think I heard a chat ping.
I will also say, like, I love this idea of integration testing where you have like a proposed output image. So since, you're building the render and a lot of this stuff. And so what I would sort of imagine is when you make potentially one small change to the renderer, many tests could fail just because they're a little bit off. And so what does this look like?
So as I was saying, I do have some slop in the renderer. Basically, I actually invented an algorithm for this. Maybe somebody else has invented it, but I haven't before. So the way it works is it looks at the two images, and for each pixel of one image, it checks, is there any pixel that's this pixel or next to it that has the correct color? Okay, and it does that in both directions, and it reports an error if there's any color which is not present in the vicinity of the other image. What that algorithm does is it says, if this moves by 1 pixel, we don't care.
Yeah,
so far, this has worked very well. The thing that what I don't have as much of a good story for is brightness changes, or hue shifts. But look, I don't get as many of those. But for example, if you have something like a gradient that's being rendered a little bit differently, those are going to be a fair number of changes. But as to like the question of like, say, you change the content and therefore it's being rendered differently, I just say that's going to be a consequence of the thing. And so the way that I keep that under control is the way that I keep that under control is with one exception for the moment, I only render stuff that is designed for the render tests. I do not say, here is one of my demo scenes, I'm going to assert that this doesn't change, because of course I'm going to change it. And like, I might add that later because like, in the principle, your final integration tests, you kind of want to, say, is this going to give people the user experience I wanted? But you want to do that kind of testing sparingly. And I haven't figured out a story for how do I want to actually solve that particular problem, but I'm not there yet. This is still very experimental engine. I don't have an experience I want to present to the user yet. I'm still working on UI stuff. Oh, and that's another tar pit, by the way. Do not write your own UI layout engine unless you really want to. Now, in my case, I really wanted to, because the whole premise of my renderer is I absolutely do not do anything but drawing cubes and also some lines sometimes. So therefore, the user interface is built out of cubes, and that means I have a 3D UI layout engine. So and so that has been an interesting challenge, especially the part where I realized after designing the first iteration that my current design does not really well support changing the layout, which is a thing you want to be able to do, like for just putting new things on the screen, or like arguably scrolling is a kind of changing the layout. So, but that's what. So I'm going to have to figure out how to solve that problem, and but there's you run into the trap of trying to design your thing to be elegant, and often when you try to design something to be elegant, you end up designing something which is which is constrained. Okay,
yes.
So if you've nailed down it works exactly this way, and then it doesn't. Like, so one way that Rust actually causes this to happen a lot is that the whole concept of borrowing. It means that you are specifically choosing, is this a thing which is going to mutate while you're looking at it, or is it not? Are you going to use interior immutability, or are you going to use references? And that is a design choice that propagates throughout the system. So here's my render test.
Wow. Okay, this is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love this so much.
So the way this works is my tests generate a JSON file that says, here's what all the outcomes were, and then they also say, I'm going to collect all of the JSON files from this test and previous ones, and I'm going to generate this report HTML. So like, this doesn't have to be complicated. I did not use, any JavaScript frameworks for this. This is just, a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS, and you can see, so it tells you the test reports and it shows you all of the images. And if there were any test failures, which there aren't here, then it would show me the diffs. I'm still working on that, but you can see that. So the rows are individual test cases. The columns are different, are different renderer modes, and this one up here, which has just a checkerboard, that's a test that if I put in these exact colors, I get these exact colors back out. So that just a validation of everything else. That one has zero slop. So then we have fog. So here's the one test. This one is displaying all of the UI buttons and things that I have for now. So that is actually testing that, because I figured that's a narrower scope. It's not the demo content, but I'm still going to have to change that one a whole lot. And then we have things like test rendering, rendering lighting, rendering, various degenerate cases. So a lot of these pictures aren't very interesting. They're testing like this one is testing, what happens if we didn't update the renderer properly? Does it not crash? Testing transparency behavior, testing what did I do in an edge case where the window was allegedly zero sized. So, and of course, testing is another place you can get stuck. It's like, I'm going to exercise every aspect of this thing, but then you're spending time writing test cases, and you've got to remember that your test cases are also constraining what you're doing, in that, like, if you decide to make a change and that change affects, the API, whether that's public or whether that's something internal, you are going to have to change your tests to also use that API. And so it's worth thinking about, is that the interface that you want to present? People talk about, loose coupling as a software design principle. I'm saying, think about loose coupling in your tests. Think about, is this test depending on a bunch of things that are not actually what this is testing? And I think can be very useful to write helpers for your tests, so that the tests only need to say the things they mean, and everything else is factored out in places which you can change once when the thing being tested changes in an API, in a sort of an API shape way rather than a fundamental way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just seeing like the test sort of suite, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff there. And I've loved this idea of integration testing, even like games, where you can run some scene and expect like that if gravity is working as it should be, then this AI character should be able to jump from here to here or something like that. And so, as just like a testing suite in general, I think like I'm sort of inspired by this to try in some other cases to see if that works.
Yeah. So that's actually another category of tests. And turns out it's really hard to write physics tests, as another thing that I have learned. So like, I'm not saying that it's impossible or that you shouldn't do it, but it's really hard to just set up a picture. Like, I have some bugs in my collision system, just sort of cases where you can fall through the floor sort of thing. And I haven't solved them, in part because it's really hard to get them into a situation where it's test. So one way that I could have solved that problem is if I can is to have the ability to record, what I do in the game, reproduce the case, capture a recording of that, and then plug that into testing. Now that, unfortunately, that has the disadvantage. It gives you a large and fragile test case, because what if you change the implementation such that that replay no longer is doing exactly the same thing? So again, it's a trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, so so like, I guess the message that I want to convey, that's not, oh, here's what I've built. The message that I want to convey is, think about what is the scope of your project, and think about, do you want to change that scope?
Mm-hmm. One thing from chat, Zester mentions the best way I've found to test collisions is to offer a $5 bounty for anyone who can make the player clip through a wall.
There's a thought.
Yeah.
And
also another question here: any future plans to rewrite it in WebGPU?
As I said, I'm using WGPU for rendering, which is which is like, it's designed after WebGPU, and it also WebGPU, and it also runs on WebGPU. So actually, when I show you the web interface right now, it is using, well, it would be using WebGPU, except that WebGPU is not, of course, not a finalized stable API. But WGPU supports both WebGPU and WebGL. Currently, it doesn't actually support running both at once, in the sense that it is it doesn't support running both at once, in the sense that you have to choose at compile time, but that's a feature that might be coming in the future. But it also means for me that once WebGPU becomes a available standard, I can just say, okay, I'm going to switch to WebGPU, or provide provide two binaries, let people just pick them in the URL or something. So I'm certainly looking forward to having WebGPU available, but like, for many years I have been programming within the constraints of just WebGL. Everything you saw in my system, that is running under the limits that would allow it to run under WebGL. And like, there are reasons to want to say, okay, I'm going to use the more advanced version, so but you want, but it's a matter of what do you want to make, and so like, one of the fundamental facts here, like, for example, all of this lighting that you're seeing, every single piece of that is computed and distributed and so on as a CPU side algorithm. And so that means that this can be rendered exactly the same no matter what the capabilities of the graphics API are. But on the other hand, that's a substantial grant. I'm spending a lot of CPU time on it, but I decided to do that mostly because, well, I was thinking, I want to be able to do the things that Minecraft does. As I said, this is like all that. This is that hobby project where you say, okay, I want to do what Minecraft does, but differently. And in Minecraft, there are things that respond to the light, and so therefore I say this is going to be deterministic. This is going to be CPU side. I might actually give up on that because I could get so much more performance out of being able to, compute the lighting as fast as possible using the available CPU time. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to do that or not. But if I do that, then now I've said that it's not deterministic anymore, and so that's a serious decision to make. But it would allow me to do a lot more of things. Like, you can see that, like, just looking at the lighting here, you can see it's kind of vaguely speckled, and it has, and we're not seeing it here because this is a nice, simple, a well-behaved scene. But it's possible to have a scene where, like, the light is obviously not going where it should, and so again, it's a trade-off. And let's see.
I think unfortunately we gotta probably call it pretty soon.
Yep. So I hope you've seen my tour through just how many rabbit holes you can find in a project.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the story for many of us of a lot of development that we do. But they're very fun rabbit holes, and we learn a ton, and so that's why we do it. So yes, Capri, thank you very much, and I hope we can see you in another few months to hear some more stories.
Yeah, and don't forget you can always decide you're going to shrink your scope.
Yes, that's a very good thing to end off with. Perfect. All right, thank you very much, Capri, and we'll see you next time. All right. So right here at the end of today's meetup, we have just a few announcements that I have here. So first off, Bevy Jam number 2 is happening pretty soon. Wait, this one right here. Bevy Jam number 2 happening pretty soon, from August 19th to 29th. And so if you're interested in giving Bevy a try or coming back and doing Bevy again, I think the first Bevy Jam was like pretty successful. There's above 50 submissions, I want to say. Wait, can I see jams, post topics, followers? Okay, maybe not. But I'm definitely going to try to give it a go this time. I'm not sure how much time I'm going to have, but it's definitely always fun to see what kind of stuff people come up with. I think the theme this time around is being done with voting. Maybe it was done last time with voting as well. And so I think if you join the Bevy Discord, you should be able to participate in that. And also, I think this I don't remember exactly when it was. I mean, I'll plug it again. We got the newsletter out. That's my next item. I don't know, maybe it just happened, but Bevy just turned 2, which is pretty cool. So there's a post about that, about some future stuff that'll be going on. Yeah, so that's it for today. So thank you everybody for coming out to the Rust Gamedev Meetup. We'll be moving over to Discord now. So if you want to talk with any of the speakers or just hang out and talk about what you've been working on, feel free to move to the Hangout chats there. And we will see all of you next month.